Hello everyone, Marcustal here, and today we're going to be doing a review of the anime Sword Art Online. Kind of late to the party, aren't I? But then again, Season 2 is right around the corner, and I think it's a great way to get right back into the throw of things before Season 2 comes out. So let's get this started. The Sword Art Online anime takes place in the year 2022 during the release of the titular Sword Art Online. Sword Art Online is a VR MMORPG being released for the device known as the Nerve Gear, which, combined with its full dive platform technology, allows the user to feel as though they are inside of the virtual worlds they're experiencing in games. We follow a character named Kirito, previously one of 1,000 beta testers for the game, who is now enjoying the game on its day of release. After spending an afternoon playing the game and teaching the game's basics to another player named Klein, Kirito and Klein discover that they cannot log out of the game. While confused for a short while, they are suddenly transported to the town center along with all of the other game's players. It is here that all the players are suddenly told their situation by the game's creator, Kayaba Akihiko. It is here discovered that the lack of a logout button is a feature of Sword Art Online. Those who die in the game or have their real-world nerve gear removed from their heads will be inundated by microwaves, which will cook their brain and, by extension, kill them in real life. The only way for them to escape their predicament is to clear all 100 floors of Sword Art Online and beat the final boss. Having been left with this brutal edict and up to their own devices, the players of SAO must now brave this new world, not only for the sense of adventure, but for their very lives. If I must say so myself, I personally believe that the setup to Sword Art Online is absolutely masterful and is presented as such. It's blatantly obvious that the show is completely aware of who its target audience is and how to attack their senses and get them into liking the show without really much question. No matter how we look at it, it's obvious that a large proportion of the Sword Art Online anime viewing base is also a gamer, and it's likely that gaming is either their primary form of entertainment, if not a secondary hobby. Thus I find that it choosing to tackle this scenario from the angle that so many gamers would want to look at it is basically ingenious from its point of view. In my case, at the very least, this premise was so well set up that it's really hard for me to actually pay attention to the show's faults because the premise itself distracts me from them. It inspired my imagination so much I hardly even needed to watch the show to really get anything out of it. Remember everyone, I'm basically this show's exact target audience, so I can't deny that I am high on that catnip. The setting thusly gets 5 lit stars out of 5 for being so good. It's probably played a large factor in me deciding to basically drop everything I'm doing and dedicate myself solely to the subject of virtual reality over the past year or so since having watched it. While I can't deny there are other factors, I can also not deny that this show played a major factor in it. Really, there's not that much I can say about this category that's gonna be good. The reality of the situation is, I really couldn't care very much for this story. The premise initially outlined was glorious, promising us 100 floors with 100 awesome boss battles that would allow us to really engage in the story. But, alas, all we got were 25 episodes, and really barely any boss battles to begin with in those 25. The first half of the story really only covers this subject, and even then it's really skipping around and kind of giving us sort of filler episodes that barely really interest or cover the main subject at hand, and the second half of the show completely just changes the entire story and gives us a rescue the princess arc like this is Super Mario Brothers. Really, the entire anime's run suffers from having content that barely feels relevant to the situation at hand. In the end, a lot of it really just comes off as really irrelevant filler. And the sad thing is, that's kind of what it is. I don't want to go into the show's production too much right now, as I feel that the way they air it is the way they want to show it. So I cannot change that, and it's the way I experienced it. But I also have to say that I knew about the story's different little bits before it coming in, so that colored my experience and I feel yet you deserve to know about it. The show's early run suffers from a lot of time skips, jumping from time to time to time. There's a light continuity to things, but the reality is they go from 20 floors to the 50th floor to the 70th floor like nothing. And the reason really is because the story was not designed and written in a fashion that follows through with the original premise. The story, as it was written in the light novels, really only covered a few of the episodes that we saw in the beginning of the season, with the writer himself noting that he kind of missed out on the premise a lot and writing side stories after the fact to cover those areas. That's what most of the filler-like episodes tend to be kind of composed of. They're side stories that have been retrofitted into being a continuity, per se, to the story. The reason for the time skips is because in the original light novel, the middle ground between all the floors was really never covered. Most of the episodes that we see aren't really things that came into the original story. That would be episodes 8 and a few little bits of 3 and 1 and 2. But for the most part, the extra episodes that we got were side stories written after the fact by the author Reki Kawahara, because they noted that they kind of missed out on those details. I'd say it takes a lot of foundational problems for the author themselves to go back and basically reboot their series, as he's done in the Sword Art Online Progressive series. As I said earlier, the backstory kind of colors my perspective on the show, but I cannot say that it colors it in a positive or negative light. It's just something that I really cannot think of the show about without thinking about as well. I really think that the show would have been better off just capitalizing on the premise it initially promised, and the fact that it chose not to and stuck originally to its source material is not something I'm going to admire. Thus, I give Sword Art Online Story 1 shaded star out of 5, because it actively detracted from my liking of the scenario because of its poor execution. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really think I have much of an opinion here. Honestly, it really is that forgettable to me. I have watched the anime over 5 times, have read the light novels twice so far, and have even read the manga a few times, and yet I still cannot muster up any real connection or care for any of the characters in this franchise. Kirito is more of a puppet or a idol that we're supposed to look at than really a character, and all the other characters only act as really things for that idol to bounce off of and take advantage of. I think the reality of the situation is Kirito isn't so much a character, so much as he is a superhero who we're supposed to want to be throughout the entire story. Whatever personal drama that he's actually having inside of the story is near completely and utterly drowned out by the sheer amount of badass that they display throughout the entire story. Outside of his battles where he shows off his badassery, there's really nothing interesting that I really can recall about the guy. Unless you count his harem among the categories of something that makes him a character, but I don't think that makes him a character, I think that makes him a plot device. I mean, it's not like the story doesn't try occasionally to make me feel something for the guy. Sometimes they actually almost pull it off, like in episode 3. But the unfortunate problem is, whenever he does have some kind of possible issue or dramatic situation, they drown it out by either having him change the context of it, or later on have something to redeem this aspect of his. Usually, this kind of redemption or drowning out of the subject happens within the episode itself, so I really don't have enough time to connect with the guy as he's having a struggle because the struggle isn't really there long enough for me to connect with it. Does his status as a beta tester make him a loner? Oh, no worries. He actively decided to make himself the worst enemy of all players receiving the title Beater because he's sacrificing himself for all the other beta testers. So he's a hero, not some sad person that's suffering from issues. Did his guild and early love interest die tragically, leaving him alone and sad? Oh well, let's have it so that the dead love interest has a message personally sent to him because she coincidentally managed to see his menu and see his level and feel that she would probably die somehow and make him feel bad for it, perfectly really matching the mood of the situation he's in. So, let's have that message completely clear up anything that might make him feel like it's completely his fault, and let's add in that there are characters visibly and actively feeling bad for him and that care for him. So yeah, it's really not that bad. He'll probably get over it eventually, right? Waifu's still trapped in the game and a weird pedophile in IRL is trying to marry her? No worries. It turns out the pedophile is some evil mastermind, and the situation is you have to go on a quest to save her, like Super Mario Brothers. I think I'm supposed to feel bad for him in many of these situations, but I just don't get enough time to. He'll usually either get over it or have some kind of thing to help calm us down in either an episode away or within the episode itself. I can't say I hated Kirito because of these reasons, because the reality of the situation is, I hardly even remember him, so I can't really hate something I don't even know is there. Kirito fulfills his role as a character inside of the story, which is basically to be a surrogate for us. As for the other characters in the story, there aren't really any standouts out there. Klein is really supposed to be more of a bar up here that represents whether or not his loner status is still active. We have Agil, which is really more of a excuse for him to really meet up with Asuna. You know it is, look at the situation. Sachi and the rest of the Moonlit Black Cats are really only there to set him up with a dark backstory so he can get over in the later episodes. Silica acts as a temporary little sister to help lift up his moods and make us feel better and as badasses for stopping a evil crime guild inside of the story. Even Asuna, the main female lead, is really only there to help Kirito get over his personal hurdles, and even after that, to only be the perfect girlfriend that all the audience really wants. I'd go on, but I'm pretty sure that you already see what I'm going at here. I'm hardly interested in any of these people as individuals, so the reality of the situation is, I can't love or hate any of them. As such, this area gets a blank star. I'm not adding it to the final tally in the score. Make your decisions as you wish. In terms of aesthetics, I think Sword Art Online is absolutely gorgeous. The show likes to set just the right lighting, the right musical tone, and the right camera angles for really whatever it's trying to achieve at any moment in time. At no points in the story did I ever feel distracted by the background, and whenever I did have to pay attention to the background, it usually looked gorgeous and was what they intended for me to do to begin with. The musical score and animation ramps up at just the right moments and whenever I feel it needs to. In particular, I have to call out the boss battles, which are some of the most epic fights I've seen in anime in a while. And the reality of the situation is, even though it's been a while since I've watched the anime initially, they still hold up and stand as a prime example of how you should pace a battle to this day. Even the non-boss battles really had some pretty cool and epic moments for them, and demonstrated the way the combat system was intricate. For each of the games they displayed in this thing, they both had their own special flavor, just like I would expect an MMO to have. Sword Art Online's decision to not have magic was a very good one in my belief, and it actually felt as though it gave the game its own flavor. Similarly, Alfheim Online, which did have magic, didn't have sword arts, and that gave it its own little flavor, and you could see inside of the story the way that they took advantage of those little mechanics in order to create very powerful structures. The amount of depth presented here is something that I believe is truly admirable, and I cannot deny that it's been a great ride to watch. I also have to call out from an animation standpoint that there is the occasional weird still frame here and there that did really get noticed during the first run through of the show, although it was never really bad enough for me to really take anything off of this area, although I have to note for it. Overall though, I'll say that the production studio did a great job with creating the anime, and that I look forward to their next work. Well everyone, I'm sure you get the picture here. If we tally up the score, the final results are 9 positive stars and 1 negative star. The final score rounds out to roughly a 3 out of 5 lit stars. The anime is definitely worth a watch, although I do suggest that you have to be a gamer or in the Pacific audience in order to enjoy it, and I can say that if you're a shonen fan, you might find something that you'll enjoy in this series. Although, do beware, if you're neither of these things, I might suggest that you stay away from the shows, as the removal of either of these categorizations can actually result in a negative experience for you. Well everyone, thank you for watching this review, and let's look forward to Season 2. This has been Marcus Dahl, everyone, logging out.